And hiding behind the caricature are the real guys. Hey, Matty.
Hey, Glenn, how are you doing? It feels much more comfortable to be chatting to you this Monday than maybe the previous couple of Mondays. There's a definite feel-good factor to our podcast and also to NYCFC as a whole, as the fans, the coaching staff, obviously, and of course the players, and specifically Hannes Wolf, let's be honest.
Yes, I really like the New York Soccer Journal covering the team in their story. They called him the Wolf of 161st Street. Well, they actually had Wall Street crossed out, and then very cute, very cute. We might have to go with that. We recognize that Hannes Wolf only scores when he scores 2 or now 3 goals in a game. He doesn't score in a lot of the others, although we can get into some of the history beyond that. So New York City FC a topic today. VAR a topic today. We'll do that a little bit later on because, wow. Springsteen has to be at least a minor topic today.
He's always a topic. He's never not a topic.
Yes,
in your mind.
But tonight he's at Madison Square Garden. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And also we have to talk about a sporting director who sat on the bench next to the head coach this weekend. Wow. So there's a lot to cover here, Matty. But let's start off with this the halting of the 7-game winless streak for New York City by defeating Columbus rather soundly. Although statistically, it was interesting to look back. You know, that's where data and analytics can sometimes fool you. Because, and as you said at the eye test, Hannes Wolf had a hat trick, and we're going to show all the goals with our commentary. It'll be a beautiful day. But you look down on the field, and Columbus just never seemed to be in it or have a chance. They got one great chance from Rudy Camacho, but other than that, I felt like New York City controlled the game, and I know you felt the same way.
Yeah, they absolutely controlled the game. I know that when we looked at the statistics after the game, Columbus Crew had many more corners. I think it was 8 corners to 3. They had much more possession and nearly 200 more passes, I think. They had more shots, overall shots. But yes, look, when you actually watched the game and didn't focus on any statistics, you saw that NYCFC were clearly the dominant team. I think there was a 10 or a 15-minute spell in the game in the second half where Columbus Crew were probably on top, slightly in the ascendancy, maybe just after halftime. But you're going to expect that in a 2-horse race. One of the other horses is going to be in it a little bit of the time. It's very hard to be, unless you're SKC, of course, when you're never in the game. It's very, very hard to be a team and totally dominant for 90 minutes. And I thought even when Columbus Crew were in the ascendancy, they still weren't creating chances. Matt Freese only had 2 saves to make, and neither of them were diving. Both of them were just caught. He didn't get his metaphor, he didn't get those knees dirty. He hardly used his gloves in the whole game. And it was a very comfortable evening for him. But yes, there was still those 2 opportunities. Camacho should have done much better there. Header at the back post. Rossi had that near post when Arfson cut the ball back to him. He probably should have done better. They were both straight at free, so both comfortable saves. But yeah, overall, NYCFC were much the better team. And I don't need any statistics to tell me that or not tell me that. Watching the match as we did, watching the whole 90 minutes from on high, NYCFC controlled it for the majority of the game.
All right, let's get right to the goals that won the game, where Hannes Wolf hadn't started for a while because of a bit of a hip injury. He sustained that in the Cincinnati game, that odd 4-2 that became 4-4 game, which Pascal Janssen has referred to over and over again as one of the main culprits in this, what he would call the second phase, or how does he put it, the second, every 6 games, the second review. They look at things, and he really looks at that game in Charlotte. We'll get to Pascal post-game too, because he was very forthright, I think, in how he was describing things. But let's see the Hannes Wolf goals, and we'll talk about them one at a time afterwards.
Here's a ball through for Fernandez Mercado, finding Ojeda on the right, cuts it back to Wolf, first time shot is a goal, and New York City in the 12th minute takes the 1-0 lead over Columbus Crew. Maxi Morales to Fernandez Mercado, receives it on the half turn, the through ball to Augustine Ojeda, the cutback to Hannes Wolf, and welcome back to the starting 11 for the Austrian, and he puts New York City in front.
Well, we said it bodes well that Augustino Hayder had started well, and this cutback is exquisite. Not only does he pick out his man, but it's a perfect weight of pass as well, because he doesn't need to break stride, Hannes Wolf, doesn't need to take a touch because it's played into him too hard. Perfect weight, and all he does is passes it into the back of the net.
5 goals in 5 games against Columbus now for Hannes Wolf. He had a brace in the last game they played last September. So,
well, we're lucky that 2 of the next 5 games are against Columbus then.
Yeah, how about that?
Well, Hannes Wolf's going to be top goal scorer in the 5 games time.
Well, we're never told ahead of time specifically who's going to be in the starting 11, but Hannes Wolf on Wednesday, May 20th, will be in the starting 11 against Columbus in that U.S. Open Cup game. That's for certain.
Absolutely. Sometimes a player just has a team he likes playing against or doesn't like playing against, and Hannes Wolf certainly likes playing against Columbus. I thought his finishes were so clinical yesterday. I know we're going to see them all, but that was the first one. I love the fact that that move started from Matt Freese. Matt Freese passed the ball into Thiago Martins, and then it was 2 straight passes, really. Thiago Martins, straight ball into Maxi Morales. A little like reverse pass, but it was still pretty much straight from Maxi into Nico, and then Nico with a 40, 50-yard pass, straight pass into a semi sort of diagonal run from Ojeda, and then a little cutback and finish. So it's gone the length of the pitch. Matt Freese started that move inside his own 6-yard box. So it's gone the length of the field's about 110 yards, I think, at Yankee Stadium. So it went about 105 yards, that move, and very quickly. And it was unerring, the passes, the quality, the speed of the passes. And the ball through from Nico was perfect. Ojeda's cutback was perfect. It really was a great team goal from back to front. It was magnificent.
Yeah, I recall, and we didn't see that far back, but Thiago Martins, he had all kinds of time on the ball too.
Yeah.
So Columbus was pressing in a manner where they were just kind of waiting for the next pass. And he just hit a bullet on the ground to Maxi, who timed his showing for the ball, and he had his back to the goal, as you said, like a little reverse ball. So, no, wonderful goal. All right, so that's in 5 minutes later, it happens again.
Fernandez Mercado, the ball falls to him. He takes it on a short hop. Now played forward to keep Parks on the left. It's the overlapping Nico Cavallo. Cavallo on the ground, cutback, goal. It's 2-0 New York City FC, and Hannes Wolf with a brace. New York City moving the ball well. Keith Parks in the middle of it, and then Nico Cavallo with a neat little ball on the deck. Then the cutback from the byline, and Hannes Wolf has been perfectly placed for a pair of pullbacks now, Matty Lawrence, with his 3rd and 4th goals of the season.
They are so hard to defend, pullbacks, because so often as a defender you're facing the ball, you're facing your own goal, you don't quite open the body up. This is a terrific move, though, from Cavallo. Great run in behind from Nico Fernandez-Macau, who cuts it back with real pace. And because there's so much pace on that cutback, all that Hannes Wolf has to do is just redirect it. He doesn't strike it. He just places his foot there and side puts it into the back of the net. It's a terrific finish. Another terrific goal.
Such a good point. Pace of the pass so often will just make it easy on the finish.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Hannes Wolf creates space by standing still. He doesn't move. He just stands still on the top of the 6-yard box, lets the defenders get dragged towards the ball, and he just stands there dead still and gets picked out by Nico Fernandez-Macau. You don't always need to be on the move. Sometimes you create space by just standing still, and it was another magnificent finish because it was really pinged back with quite a pace from Nico Fernandez-Macau. So it was a brilliant finish, and another first-time finish, the second of his 3 first-time finishes, and that was a great finish because it's not easy just to redirect the ball sometimes. Just had to open the foot up a little bit and beat Schulte. We know Schulte's a good goalkeeper, and he didn't get anywhere near either of them.
Yeah. The 3rd goal was different, although it had similar qualities as to what side of the field they were attacking and setting up Wolf for this one. So before we continue, let's see the goal that really sort of clinched it, although we're going to get to the Pascal Janssen post game when because we were talking about it in commentary, where he left his starters out there, including Maxi Morales and Nico Fernandez-Mercado, knowing that there's a Wednesday match in Charlotte and this schedule has been congested and will remain so pretty much up until the World Cup break. But anyway, here's the third one that didn't quite clinch it, at least in Pascal Janssen's mind.
Collected by Maxi Morales. Here's one through on the overlapping Cavallo. The cutback deflected. Can New York City get on it? Yes, and the shot, it's a goal! And it's Hannes Wolf! And he has his first professional hat trick! We thought he had the trick in the first half, but the goal was disallowed from an offside run. This time from outside the area, and with the right foot, he puts it past Columbus keeper Patrick Schulte, and New York City FC. They take the 1-2 and now 3-0 lead. The only other hat trick for Wolf in his career, Matty, was at the U19 level.
He'll be happy here. How about the first touch from Tavon Gray, about 10 passes before the ball goes into the back of the net, when he creates space for himself. He takes the ball inside, as you said, Glenn, away from the opposition and kept possession, more importantly. It was a wonderful team goal. It's a 15-20 goal move, or pass move, that is for certain. And finished with a plum from Hannes Wolf. The way he just curls that into the back of the net. Laid off nicely by Fernandez-Mercado. Also credit Cavallo. Showed pace down the left-hand side.
Yeah, so everybody gets happy about the hat trick, right? There's Quinny joining us today. Little G Money. He does look good with the hattie. No question about it. And there it was. Now, the part that talk about this goal, because you mentioned Tavon Gray, and I think that was important. You know, we described it as it was happening also. But I've said this before, and I'll say it the rest of my days that I'm able to talk about the game. But rewind the tape 30 seconds every time before a goal scored or a goal conceded. And you could even go further back, but 30 has always generally been a pretty good marker for me. And you can see where things are created initially.
Yeah, the touch from Tavon, he understands who's around him. And the first touch is quite a big touch, but that's fine because he knows where the space is. He creates the space. He takes the ball with that first touch away from the opposition players and keeps that move flowing and really starts that move. I think there'd been passes before that as well. It was a very long move. It was terrific the way they just carved open. They went from the right-hand side, Tavon, down to Cavallo on the left-hand side. Great to see Cavallo's pace. I don't think I realised quite how quick Cavallo was, but we got to see it yesterday. His overlapping runs, he's got proper tenacity getting up there and real pace down that flank.
And a left peg.
And a left peg. And we think that probably he is going to be in that spot for a good game or two. It doesn't sound good for Kevin O'Toole's point of view. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the injury is, but you just sense, Glenn, that he's got that spot for a little while and he's growing into it. It's no surprise. He's old in terms of being an inexperienced player. I think he's 24. He obviously did 5 years at college, 4 years at Davidson, 1 year at UCLA. So he's coming into the game late. I did similar, and it took me a year, or if not 2 years, Glenn, to learn how to truly become a professional footballer and train every single day and focus on the game. You know, at UCLA, he'd have been concentrating on his masters. He'd have been 50% a student, 50% an athlete. Now he is 100% an athlete, and he's got to learn how to deal with that mentally and physically of being a professional footballer every minute of the day. And right now, he's growing into it. But I think the same for Kevin O'Toole when he came from Princeton. It took him a little while to get into the game, to truly learn how to be a professional footballer. There's nothing wrong with that. I say it took me a good year to truly learn how to become a footballer and not a student athlete anymore. So credit to those guys for growing into it. Cavallo, I thought was superb going forward yesterday. Defensively, there's still a lot of work, but going forward, he was magnificent. Yeah,
the defensive side is something he'll have to focus on for sure. That's just his fourth career start. And I think if you want to compare him to Kevin O'Toole's development, Same thing with O'Toole, not a particularly good 1v1 defender when he arrived, and it's something that he had to really work at. And like you said, Cavallo's got decent pace, so you can recover in certain situations if necessary, but your positioning, all the little technical defending things that you know very well about, moving your feet and reading your attacking player, the guy you're going up against, you're facing up against, to the extent where you could almost predict where they're going to go.
Yeah, he's got to learn how good these guys are. The collegiate football over here is collegiate soccer over here is decent, but it's just a decent standard. He's now got to play against true professionals, like Diego Rossi or Lionel Messi, the big guy, Daniel Gazdag, those type of guys who've got real ability, and you don't quite twig on how good professional players are until you stood down there 2 yards in front of them and you see their movement and their ability to see a bigger picture quicker than you do. And it takes you a little while to acclimatize. So the defending will definitely come for Cavallo, but it might take a little while, and you'll have to put up with little slips and wrong positioning and things like that, Glenn. But going forward, he looks very, very steady and confident going forward. I like what I've seen.
If you're watching this now or listening, it's NYCFC Coffee Break. Maddie and I, we do the English hometown radio commentary for the New York City Football Club. And some watched on Apple yesterday. I got a few notes about that, where you can use the drop-down app. Some listened on Sirius XM-FC. That was yesterday's game as well. And then the New York City FC Radio Network, where every game is on home and away. And so we're doing this every Monday morning at 11 a.m. And when there's a Sunday game, it's an immediate review. I kind of like that, The Saturday game, you got to wait a little bit. But the Sunday games, man, you're right back on it,
Yeah, it's lovely to get the week started as well. And it's even better when we're getting the week started with a win and talking about a hat-trick from a good player in Hannes Wolf and 3 magnificent team goals, not just individual goals, but team goals. So, but again, Pascal Janssen talks about it as well post-game. It's still only one game. It's one game. The rot has been stopped, has been quelled, but it needs to carry on. And the next 3 MLS games are very, very tough. Well, the next 4 games, including US Open Cup, 4 away games, all at good, decent teams. Columbus are a decent team at home. Nashville are a good team at home. The Red Bulls are a good team at home. So they're going to be good games to pit your wits against really good teams.
Well, think about Charlotte. I think, with the exception of those playoff games last year, which obviously were huge, New York City had never won in Charlotte before at the Bank of America Stadium. I want to get to this post-game comment. I ran downstairs and got down in time. We haven't seen many post-games live with Pascal, but I was down there, so I got a question in. And I wanted to ask this one because you really brought it up in our commentary. 85th minute, Hannes Wolf with his 3 goals, but he always puts in a shift.
Yes,
he works hard on both sides. So Malachi Jones comes in for him then. Keaton Parks, who has not played this long at all this year. So this was certainly significant for him. Also goes out at the 85th. Johnny Shore comes in. Augustine Ojeda, now we know he's 21 years old, and you figure, he can run forever. But again, you got a game coming up on Wednesday, and it's been very congested, and he's played just about every minute. Arnau Farnos came in for him at the 88th minute. And then 90+1, Maxi Morales comes out at 39 years old, Maximo Carrizo, and Seymour Reed for Nico Fernandez-Mercado. And there were only maybe 3 or 4 minutes left with the added time. No, actually about 2 minutes left remaining with the added time. So in commentary, we questioned whether, I don't know if I brought it up or you did, but it'd be like, does he not feel safe with this 3-0 lead? And is it based on it? So I did bring it up afterwards. So here's what he says. I don't want to call it normal circumstances, but were you not 100% comfortable at 3-0 at that time just because of how things have transpired at times in the past?
It had crossed my mind, to be honest. On the other hand, for us, priority number 1 is always the game that we're playing. And that is, in this case, the game against Columbus. And once the game is finished, then we'll start thinking about the next game that is ahead. But it did cross my mind. And as you know, Glenn, Maxi is a big piece for us in also reading the game and making sure that the game is managed in the right way. So yeah, it's a bit of both worlds.
Yep. So he was concerned, and who wouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you really want to, you couldn't have anything disastrous happen yesterday afternoon at Yankee Stadium, and leaving Maxey, I guess, helped curtail any possible disaster.
Yeah, if they'd have relinquished the 3-goal lead, that could almost have ended the season. I mean, mentally for the players and the coaching staff, because if you can't hold on to a 3-0 lead at home, then it's curtains. Especially coming off the back of other games that have been poor, the 7-game losing streak, the 2-goal lead they had against FC Cincinnati, and giving that up. I think that I agree with everything that Pascal Janssen said there. It is each game at a time. It's only this game, the here and the now, that is important. But as a manager, you do know that you're playing in 3 days' time. You do know you've got to fly there. If this was the 2025 NYCFC side at 3-0, which I think happened in about the 65th, 66th minute, there'd have been multiple substitutions, because that team at the time in 2025 was a lot more, certainly the back end of the season, was a lot stronger mentally. You could be assured that they would be strong enough mentally to withstand anything.
We always call those professional
how to see out a game.
Just seeing out the game the way that's necessary to get the 3 points, and then now you focus on the next game.
I think it's illuminating that Pascal admits to everybody, to yourself, he's answering your question, but to everybody, that he's a little worried about the fragile mentality of his team, and he has to be, because of what's gone on, for him to admit it as well. I think his own players will watch that and go, oh, wow, the boss isn't quite sure about us yet. I know we've just won 3-0, but he's still not quite sure about us. And you know, that keeps them on their toes as well. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I don't mind that at all from Pascal. He's being brutally honest that at 3-0, he still wasn't comfortable. And he didn't feel comfortable bringing off a 39-year-old until the last minute of the game. We know that Maxey's a leader and he does read the game well, but boy, your team should be able to see out a 3-goal lead for the last 20 minutes without Maxey, without a Keaton Parks, without Ojeda. But yes, he wasn't entirely comfortable, and I don't mind that at all. Now, though, how does it bode for the game against Charlotte when you've got to travel? And then how does it look after the 60-minute mark in terms of players, losing their physicality and their mentality as well? Because that was a real shift against Columbus. 3-0 sounds like an easy game, but it wasn't that easy. There was still the opportunities. The Camacho header at the back post at 2-0. He should have scored that. And there are still the odd moment in games when defensively they are troubled, NYCFC. That Camacho header, Glenn, was another one where NYCFC had 11 players, all 11 players in their own penalty area, and Camacho gets a free header at the back post. So it's still a work in progress.
The supporters understand it. No question. Yes. The Cincinnati thing will be referred to probably for the remainder of the season. And then interesting here, I want to respond to this because Pascal has said to me personally that he doesn't tell me or anybody else anything publicly unless he's already talked about it with the players. So, that's a Big Ten for.
He's a wonderful man manager, Pascal Janssen. He understands that everybody's different, or all personalities are different, all professional footballers are different, and he treats them all as individuals as well as collectively as a team. But yes, Pascal Janssen is not afraid to tell players home truths. So yes, he wouldn't tell you, Glenn, or the press as a whole, anything that he hadn't already told his players. That's for sure.
Well, I have a great friend who years ago, she worked a soccer camp for me at Rutgers University. Her name's Mary Cook Williamson. She's a high-level coach and now administrator in Holland. She's really instrumental in a lot of the things that have happened on both the men's and women's side in the country. She knows Pascal well. I had lost touch with her, so I had communication. I'm sure she would not mind me reading this about Pascal. First of all, she said, please send him a big hug. He is a great coach for sure and an incredible man, not only committed to play good football, but also committed to care for the people he works with. And it's somebody that knows him well. I think we've come to understand that a little bit. And especially during this streak of ineffective results. And you mentioned in one of the great parts of being at games and being there at the end and being able to observe even post-game stuff is after one of the losses, and maybe it was the Cincinnati tie. I don't recall which game, but it was one of those ones where there was this dreadful feeling afterward. And he waited for every player and shook his hand before they went into the locker room. We observed that on the field, including, who is it? Raul Gustavo, who was very late. He was maybe signing an autograph. I'm not sure what he was doing with the supporters, but Pascal waited right in that same spot. And every player came to him, and he waited another maybe 2 minutes for Raul Gustavo to get there and shook his hand and then went back into the locker area.
Yeah, and as a player, you remember those moments. You find that extra little 0.5% for the man who's in charge of you, for the boss, if he treats you well. Man management is so important. Of course, we know he's a good coach. He wouldn't be where he was today if he wasn't a good coach. But it's the man management aspect of his coaching or his management that really makes him stand out for me. And they're the things you notice. And as an ex-pro, Glenn, I notice how he treats his players. I'm not there at the training ground. I'm not there in the changing room, obviously. But it's the things that I do see in public. Like at halftime of the game yesterday, he walked off the pitch almost arm in arm with Raul Gustavo and Thiago Martins.
Yeah.
He played as a third centre-half. He got in between them and he sort of walked them off the pitch, not frog marched them. You could see the way he was speaking. It was in a friendly manner, but also it was stern. It was effective communication. And then after he'd spoken to those two, he grabbed Tavon Gray. And I don't mean physically. I mean, he grabbed him to talk to him. And it's those things. So before he'd even got into the dressing room to address the team at halftime, he'd already taken care of 75% of his defensive line, which has been at the moment quite porous and has been letting in goals. So it's like, right, great, clean sheet at halftime, but that's only half the job done. I don't know exactly what was said, but it would have been words to that effect. And I do love that.
Well, you remind me when I'll be talking to him tomorrow afternoon after we land in Charlotte, and I'd like you to remind me to ask that, because I think he'll let me know what he said, I think. And because I'm interested too. Is it tactical? Is it encouragement? And I think you're really right on with it because of the frailties at the back, in recent games. Let's get to Keaton Parks for a moment. We talked about him playing 85 minutes. Now, he had only started one of the previous 5 matches, and at least 2 of those, maybe 3, were the coach's decision. So I kind of asked him a little bit about that.
And Keats is a guy that is he thrives for perfection. So when it's not perfect, it feels uncomfortable. And he had a few good moments in the first sequence of games. I remember the game that we played against Orlando where he scored 2 goals. And everybody thought, including himself, okay, I'm close to being myself again. But that wasn't the case, and it's still not the case. But I congratulated him just now in the dressing room also, because he played over 80 minutes, which is, in his case, maybe even a bigger achievement, because he was able to play more than 80 minutes at a good level compared to where he used to be before this game.
So there's on Keaton Parks, again, basically saying, he's not close to being there yet, and so he's working with him on that. And the way I asked the question, you didn't hear that, and this is in the post-game presser, is Keaton had a little more spark last night, unquestionably. Yeah. And, when you're on the bench at the start of the game and you're healthy and maybe you feel like you should be out there, things change a little bit sometimes for you competitively, don't they, Matty?
Yeah, that they absolutely do. He knows he's in a dogfight. He knows he's in a dogfight for his position. He knows that Truin and Aidan O'Neill right now are the number 1 centre midfielders, the twin sixes, if you will. Aidan O'Neill only wasn't playing because of injury, so he came in. I thought he had an excellent game, Keaton Parks. What is very interesting, Glenn, is that Keaton Parks isn't quite comfortable in himself yet, in his body. That's probably his physicality, coming back from long layoffs, multiple operations. We know that. Still not overly sure himself how long his career is going to last. And that's his words, not my words.
Yeah, he said that
Keaton
earlier.
Parks' words has said that. So it's something that he's got to come to terms with mentally. He sounds like he's an absolute ultimate perfectionist, Keaton Parks. So when his own standards drop, it sometimes hurts him more mentally, I think, than other people. Everybody's not exactly the same. We're all different humans. We're all different styles of footballers. So I think that hurts him as well when he can't quite reach those levels. That's physically and technically as well at the moment. But I thought yesterday he was magnificent. He was involved in all the games. He's a really intelligent footballer, Keaton. I don't know whether he's lost a little bit of maybe pace. He's never been blessed with masses of pace, but obviously when you've had 3 serious operations on the calf, I don't know whether that's affected him, but he's a ball player, and I think he creates space in his head almost a lot of the time without needing it.
But I don't recall the last time I saw him go down on a slide tackle, and it was really well timed. Remember, it was
and he just wrapped his foot around it.
Yeah, and he won it. They won the ball back pretty deep in the Columbus end, and it was based in part on his slide tackle along the near touchline, in order to get the ball. So that's 2 things there. Number one, he's feeling better about himself, obviously, if he's going to go in for a tackle like that. And then number 2, that concerted effort, maybe that 5% more, whatever it might be, from a competitive standpoint. When you are competing with an O'Neill, you're competing with Andres Perea, who was held out with apparently something minor, but he wasn't in the squad yesterday. But Perea is another part of that midfield. So there's a jam in there. But yes. Parks offers something that none of the other 3 can, and that is the probably in some ways the final pass.
Yes, I agree.
And the ability to kind of get out of those little jams, even though he's 6'3" and the legs are long, he can squeeze out of things.
Yeah, he's got great mobility in tight quarters, and he manipulates the ball really well. And I think he probably has got a picture in his head maybe a little bit quicker than Perea does. They're different types of players. I agree. Keaton Parks can unlock defenses, unlike the other 3. The other 3 have that ability, but not quite as much. And Parks, at his best, you would get him in your team. You'd find a way to get him in his team. He's earned the right to wear the shirt. He's earned the right to start now for NYCFC, Glenn. But again, we don't know now how he's going to feel today, right now, after the game. We don't know how he's going to feel warming down. So I'm not going to say he's going to start the next game because we don't know the sports science. We don't know the medical issues that are going on.
Well, plus we don't know if O'Neill will be ready. We don't know if Perea will be ready.
Yeah.
We do know that Johnny Shore came in for Parks, and we know he's capable of coming in and being part of the 11 in an MLS game. It's happened often in his career, not so often this year, but certainly last year when he was needed. So there are options. Sure.
Absolutely. There's options for sure. But if you're the manager, every one of those 11 starters has earned the right to wear the shirt. And if everything is fine, if everything's fine physically, when they've traveled, when they've flown down to Charlotte, they all have to start. They've earned that right to start. But again, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So don't anybody say that Matty says that it's going to be the same starting 11. All I'm saying is if everybody is fit and healthy, it should be the same starting 11. They have earned that right, Glenn. As a player, you get that right to wear the shirt. You're out there in the starting lineup and you win 3-0. There's no way anybody can be dropped now unless there's little, certainly not tactically you can't be dropped. It's got to be little niggles, little injuries. Maxi Morales is 39, maybe he can't recover in time. But the good thing we do know about going down Charlotte is finally there's grass on the field, Glenn. So that does aid the players. It does aid.
Yeah.
Aid Maxi Morales, does aid Keaton Parks.
And your decision on personnel too.
Absolutely.
So we know that Pascal Janssen, he's made this very clear now that he splits the season into every 6 games where he does a review. So he calls it blocks.
Blocks of 6, yeah.
And they're entering the 3rd block now. So he addressed that a little bit. We know that New York City started out without a loss in their first 4, including 3 wins. Then without a win, their next 7, leading into game number 12 last night, which was the 3-0 victory at Yankee Stadium against Columbus.
As I mentioned just now, for us, this game was the fresh start going into the 3rd block with the games ahead against a good opponent also who has just got back on their feet because they had a troubled start in the beginning of the season. But how do we prevent ourselves going back in time and things happened during the 2nd block? That is that is something that we've discussed, obviously, and we are convinced that for 90%, it's a mentality issue, because I've used the word casual at some point as well. And if you see the games that we've played in the second block, there were quite a few good games, but there was also like one or two that were way below our standards. And I think the game against Charlotte and against Cincinnati stand out in the things that I just mentioned, because if you score 4 goals against Cincinnati the way we did, that can never be a draw. And that's a mentality thing. If you have Charlotte here in New York and they have 0 shots on target, but we're not clinical in finishing our own moments, then 1 shot on target might be enough. And that is something that we're very well aware of going into this third block of games. And the mentality that we showed today on and off the ball was better, and that helps going forward.
I like the fact that he calls the ability to finish and lists that under mentality.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it is, it's not just technique.
It's self-belief. It's self-belief as you're addressing the ball that you're going to hit the back of the net. That's why centre forwards throughout my career, quite often if they're going to a barren run, they just put a bag of 20 balls down, place the balls on the 6-yard box, no goalkeeper, and just get used to just feeling the ball hitting the back of the net again. All about repetition and just getting used to that confidence. And then you work up to striking the ball from the penalty spot, then from the 18-yard box, then you put the goalkeeper in. That's all about mentality. It's not so much technique. It's just having that real self-belief that you're going to score goals when you get in front of goal. And I don't think Hannes Wolf always has it. I don't think that Ojeda has it right now. I think the only one who truly does is Fernandez Macau. So yeah, that is something that you can train the mind as well as training your feet and the physical aspects, the technical aspects of it.
Well, Charlotte coming up, and they come off a 2-2 draw with Cincinnati, who's been mentioned several times because that's the game that keeps getting referred to, the 4-4 home draw against Cincinnati. Charlotte, the interesting story there, really, and it has to be number one, is Wilfried Zaha, who there are reports that it's just not happening in terms of them getting together, whether it's his desire or the club's desire. But he's approaching his final moments with Charlotte, it seems, because his loan with Galatasaray ends at before the World Cup ends.
Yeah.
Therefore, and that's been the question since
it's a European contract, so his contract will end on June the 30th. I'd have thought, so he'll be a free agent come July the 1st.
Right, and so these are reports. I don't know how reliable they are. There are more than one, though, that says that it seems there's a feeling that either the club or Zaha or maybe both are leaning towards these are his final moments. So I want to savor that on Wednesday, to be honest with you, because I like watching him play. He's an entertainer. I don't mind the fact that he goes after the referees, or after his opponents. I mean, there's at least a little flavor there. And ability, obviously, too.
He's got absolutely bags of ability. I've known Wilfried on and off over sort of 15 years. He came over as a young boy when I was at Crystal Palace. He was a 16, 17-year-old and came over and trained with the first team before making his debut just a few months later. He's got had precocious talent. He's still got the talent. He's got that little bit of a chip on his shoulder that makes him a little bit nasty at times as well, whether that's just verbally or not. I think he picked up 5 yellow cards in 6 games, didn't he? And got suspended for the 7th, something like that this season already. Yeah. And I bet he didn't put a tackle in. None of those would have been for tackles. I'm sure they would all have been for remonstrating ungentlemanly conduct towards the referee. He's a great player. He's fun to watch, but he just hasn't looked massively happy at Charlotte at any point. We've watched him play for Charlotte many times, and up close and personal, Glenn, because there's been the series with Charlotte and, of course, their Eastern Conference foes as well. Even during warm-ups, he gets too agitated. You see him in some warm-ups, and he's so agitated, he gets irritated with his teammates. He just doesn't look comfortable. I'm not sure whether his family's moved over. I certainly know at the beginning his family, his partner and his kids were back in London. He is a London boy. That's why things didn't work out. Part of the reason why things didn't work out for him in Manchester. And Manchester's just 3 hours away from London.
Yeah.
Let alone Charlotte now, that's a 7-8 hour plane ride. He's a London boy, born and bred, and he loves South London. And he likes his home comforts. I think this is me merely speculating. I don't know.
That could very well be it. And there's another player. So that's coming up Wednesday. So we'll have that live commentary for you. That's a 7:40 kickoff. So we'll be on Eastern time, 7:15 pregame show. Maddie and I will do a pregame live on this same sort of little avenue of transmission. But we'll be at the Stadium Bank of America. The other one, James Rodriguez. This was an odd one.
Yeah.
Right. So there's multiple reports again, and it's pretty much a done deal that he will depart Minnesota after Wednesday's match versus Colorado to prepare for the World Cup for Colombia and will not return. That's the key element of the story. Now, he's only played 5 games. He got his first 2 goal contributions. Minnesota came back and tied Austin yesterday by the score of 2-2. Minnesota was at home. And so it was I think actually Austin tied it late. Minnesota was up 2-1, then it became 2-2. But James had assists on both goals. And now after Wednesday, they host Colorado. That's it. And it was such a big deal. And part of it, I think we always understood it's to help him prepare for the World Cup in Colombia. And he was a little banged up, so injuries prevented him from maybe performing sooner. But it just seems odd to me. That's all.
It's very, very odd. He also isn't physically fit enough, is he? I didn't get dehydrated after 60 minutes in 65, 70 degree temperatures and had to come off, then had to go to hospital. I thought we read again. I don't know that for a fact, but certainly
it was a while back. But he was in the hospital for sure. Yeah.
So you have to believe. Well, not have to believe. He will be in contact with the Colombian Football Association, with the coaches there. He must have already been assured his place. I would, as a head coach of any team, certainly a national team going into the World Cup, I wouldn't want my player not to be playing and wouldn't want him to be playing regular minutes. I know James Rodriguez is a talent, but he was a talented boy quite a while ago now. That talent has been waning recently. He had a decent season at Everton. He had the odd season at Bayern Munich, but they were a long time ago now. That's like 2020. I know he did okay for Lyon, but not that's not at the high standard of the Bundesliga or certainly not the Premier League. Well, it just hasn't worked for him.
But as far as getting fit for, this seems like the part of the odd nature to for me, Maddie, and maybe you've got an explanation, is that he's leaving after Wednesday's game, but there are still games to play before the World Cup break. No one's joining their World Cup side until, well, the U.S. men, there'll be a roster reveal May 26th. And I think after that, they'll get together. And that's after this phase of the MLS season. So that's the part that's a little odd too. He came off the bench for these 2 assists. So he's still not, he's still not a full-time player.
As we always say, there's only one way to get match fit, and that's to play matches. He can't go away and work with a personal trainer and do shuttle runs and go swimming and bike runs. That doesn't get you match fit. You can't even train with the ball. He can't even go to, say, Real Madrid and train with them and get match fit. Yeah. You can't do it without playing games of football at a competitive level. So it is very, very strange, Glenn. We don't know whether there's any underlying issues, whether he's carrying injuries. We don't know that. But it's absolutely a very, very bizarre, assuming that he has actually been, given a place on the Colombian national team squad. I can only believe that he knows that for a fact. But what he's going to do now, because the first game's not until, it's not for another 4 or 5 weeks' time. What he's going to do now to stay fit, get match fit, well, there's nothing you can do apart from play games of football. So it's quite a bewildering one for me, Glenn, I must admit.
Now, here's another odd one, and it involves someone we know well who treated us great during his time at New York City FC, and that was the former sporting director, now current sporting director at Sporting KC, David Lee, who so this was we were alerted to this by a friend of ours, but on MLS 360, that's the kind of the wrap-up show on Apple, they reported and then showed video of David Lee on the bench in Sporting KC's 6-0 loss at Portland. So we know it's like they're in this historic slump. 1-8-2 is the record for Sporting KC under Rafael Vicky, and apparently David was sitting right next to Vicky and actually looking at an iPad like an assistant would and shouting instructions. And in previous games, I've seen Edu Rubio sitting directly next to Rafael Vicky. Now, I haven't seen any of this. Edu Rubio happens to be a very good friend of mine, and I'm not going to put him in the uncomfortable position to ask him what's going on. But you've also got Dominic Kinnear, who, if there's a guy that you can rely on to keep things stable, it's a guy, Dominic Kinnear. So it was just the whole, the vision of this is also odd to me. And I suppose it really lends itself to, the difficult things going on at Sporting KC now. Is the quote is relentless ambition. This is a recent quote from David, that he has relentless ambition to rebuild the club. And I'm not using the words vote of confidence because that's not what he did. He just said he's trying to find more players to support Rafael Vicky, who he brought in to manage this team. Rafael Vicky's not getting the sack. I mean, David Lee went through a process to bring him in. So they're all going to have to deal with this.
I don't always like the word project when talking about a football team, but we're talking about a football club, and it's more than just the team. This is a long-term project. These are not my words, but it seems that Peter Vermees ran the football club into the ground a little bit. There was no true scouting network. There was no true analytical department. The squad certainly wasn't fit for purpose. So it's being built from foundations up, Glenn. That's going to take an awfully long process. You don't just want to bring in 30 players and throw them in there and try and work it out. You've got to make sure you get the right players. I think they've still got 8 roster spots open. So there's still a lot of work to do with the team, but then it's around it as well. If you've got no scouting network, it's very hard to get good players in. And if you haven't got an analytical department,
you can only look at the screen so long at players that are sent to you. You need a lot more depth than that.
Yeah, and there's only so many agents you can listen to. And I know certain managers have their agents that are their friends, and and you end up bringing in players, and certainly people like Tony Pulis and Sam Allardyce, Neil Warnock, that I know back in England, they'd have their little gaggle of 3 or 4 agents, and lots of the players that would be brought in were associated with those agents. It's not the way to go, but believe you me, but those guys had good success with that. I don't know what Vermees did, but it sounds maybe similar. But look, there's too many cooks right now, I'd have thought. If you've now got David Lee, you've now got Edu Rubio, who's very, very experienced, West Ham, Wolves, all around Europe. You've got Rafael Vicky, who's experienced as a head coach, and Dominic Kinnear, who's also experienced as a head coach. Have you now got 4 people shouting on instruction? What you've got to hope is that they are all singing and reading from the same hymn sheet, Glenn. I think it's worrying when a sporting director or a general manager, however we're going to class David Lee, and I think it is sporting director, when they're down there at the coalface, on the bench, visible to everybody and visible to the players. I think it can almost at times put players on edge a little bit more. I remember when chairman, and I know he's not the chairman, David Lee, but I remember when chairman come into the dressing room after games and want to rant and rave, and they can. That's their right. They own the football club. It's their money. But you're like, what are you ranting and raving about? It's not your job. Your job is to choose the manager. The manager is your spokesperson because you employed him. You're the head of the club. And
then you give him the reins to make the decisions. And you obviously are in constant daily
but you're not there in the public eye. And the minute the chairman starts coming into the dressing room or the sporting director sat on the bench, you've got problems. There are problems, and we know Sporting KC have got them. I don't know all the underlying issues. Of course, I don't. It's a big job.
We don't have any background. We just have the visual, which we haven't seen, but it's been described, and it was on MLS 360. Once I heard that, where they talked about it and showed it, then that's pretty stark. And and it's a massively unfair comparison. But when I heard that, the first thing I think of is like Jerry Jones and George Steinbrenner, and it's different because they weren't they weren't on the sporting side. They were just owners.
Yeah.
But where you get emotional, next thing you know, they're on the sideline or calling down to the dugout or whatever was happening. So I'm sure this is much more organized. I can't imagine that he just popped on the bench without letting everybody know it was going to happen.
And he knows he's visible. He knows it's in the public domain now. The minute he's on the bench, everybody knows.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm obviously, from a personal standpoint, very much rooting for Sporting KC to dig out of this, and we'll see how it goes. All right, let's get to this VAR thing, shall we?
Why not?
I want to make sure. First of all, here this was after the goal was disallowed. West Ham trailing Arsenal at home, London Stadium, 0-1. And they get a late equalizer, very late. And Arsenal's goal was late. So I'm listening to this entire game on Sirius XM, Matty, because I was on the road and I couldn't watch. Actually, getting to our game that we were going to broadcast, and that we did broadcast. So I'm on the road to Yankee Stadium listening to this thing, and it was really exciting because there was so much at stake. As the commentators kept saying, at the top of the table and the bottom of the table, and you couldn't describe it any more accurately. But look who's in the picture here disputing what was an overrule. Tati Castellanos, he started the game, but he was taken out. We know Nino, the manager, but Tati was also very much objecting to this particular.
I didn't watch the game either. I think Tati had a good header that Raya made a good save on. I think.
Yeah,
the same. I was on the road as well, traveling to our game.
I only heard the second half, so if that happened, it probably happened in the first half. But here's a very short clip. This is from NBC Sports. I took this off of social media.
After review, West Ham number 19 commits a foul on the goalkeeper. Final decision is direct free kick.
It's disallowed. That is a decision that will be talked about for weeks, months, and years.
So there's a million angles on it. And the one thing that, and I've listened to Talk Sport, Sirius, read as much as I could, and there is one overriding factor here that, and Arsenal directly involved, because of the way they've produced their set-piece goals in the last couple of years. And the grabbing and tangling and blocking and all the different things, which are all illegal by the letter of the FIFA laws, are permitted. So a lot of the commentary post-game was that, this is how Arsenal has lived this season. This is why they will probably win the Premier League now, is because they've had this sort of thing go on. So even though there was an arm up on the keeper, there were about 3 other things that happened before that where you saw West Ham players getting tackled to the ground and all that other stuff.
And Arsenal have scored multiple goals where there's been many more fouls than we saw there, and much harder fouls and much more physical fouls. That technically is a foul. That is technically a foul, and so you have to stay to the letter of the law. I watched Sky Sports this morning, and it's 50-50. Some people thought it should have been allowed. Some people thought, because it wasn't that clear and obvious an error. I think it's a foul. I do think it's a foul. It's just all you ever want from officials, and over a season that's very hard, is continuity and consistency. You can go back and look at 10 Arsenal goals from corner kicks and set pieces, and there's many more infringements than we saw there from the number 19 of West Ham. So it's the inconsistency of the league and the inconsistency of VAR, and that's very, very difficult when you have different people refereeing. It can't be just the one man refereeing all the games, because football's subjective, isn't it? It's very, very, you can draw different conclusions. Different human beings draw different conclusions and look at the rules, translate the laws of the game in a different way as well, Glenn. I thought that was a foul, but I thought it was
I agree.
incredibly harsh when you've seen some of the goals that Arsenal have scored.
Right.
But that's not the point. The law says that is a foul, a free kick. Does Raya just fall over whining? Yes, of course he does. Would Raya have caught it? No, he wouldn't, because he goes at it all tentatively and it's terribly weak goalkeeping.
Right.
But it is a foul by the letter of the laws of the game.
Now, here's a question for you. So let's just say you pinpointed 2 or 3 fouls by Arsenal on West Ham before that foul was committed, within the sequence of the corner kick. And the video assistant referee, they timed it. It was a 5-minute review. Yep. 5 minutes.
Well, it has to be, because they're analyzing all the fouls that happened before.
But if a foul, if there was a foul committed prior to that foul, wouldn't it be a penalty?
Yes, it should be a penalty kick. Yeah.
So that was part of the other discussion that was going on, throughout the day.
Certainly what I heard this morning, and I just jumped on watching Sky Sports. I have the ability to watch Sky Sports back in England, here in my apartment in Jersey City. And they said that the only true clear foul that they came to, and I think it was Lasso and Lee Dixon and John Champion who were on the NBC commentary. Yeah. They said was the Declan Rice foul that was behind and happened after the initial foul on Raya. So they said that obviously the first foul comes first, but I thought there was a couple of other little fouls that you may have been able to say happened before Raya gets fouled. But look, if you start analysing and this is the problem with VAR, is you're now analysing every aspect of a corner kick. And if you do that for every single corner, you're going to come up with either 10 penalties or 10 disallowed goals, or the game's going to last 120 minutes long.
Still this is what's great about the technology. It's still a human decision.
Yes, exactly.
And just to close, because you can state it more directly and accurately than me, but you heard the commentator on the little clip I played say this will be talked about for years.
Yes.
Why is that?
It will be talked about for years because it's contentious and it looks as though it's going to get, and it's also the latest thing to happen. It looks as though it's going to give us, it's not going to give them, but they will win the league now because of it. And it's been 20 years since they won the league. And we love to talk about football. It's the game. We love to talk. We prefer to talk about dodgy decisions than we do a wonderful goal, a wonderful finish.
Yeah, that's
true. The game as a whole.
The other side of it is West Ham going down.
And West Ham going down, of course.
But there's a big match today. Spurs plays today, right? So Spurs plays Leeds.
For the first time ever, Tottenham fans are celebrating Arsenal's win. You know that?
How about that? That's amazing. That is amazing. And Man City was rooting heavily for West Ham.
Yeah. That's why we love it, Glenn. That's why we love it for these contentious decisions. We'd hate it if everything was right, I think. What would the back pages be? Yeah. We love that. We love the consternation. We love the arguments. And football's it's a fluid game. It's very hard. Well, it's impossible to get everything right.
All right, Matty, whether you're sick of me or not, we'll see you again tomorrow.
And, I will see you tomorrow.
Head down to Charlotte. And again, airtime for us on the New York City FC radio network, English and Spanish, is 7:15 p.m. Eastern. And then Matty and I will be on at 6:30 with our NYCFC pregame live. And that'll be after I have spoken to Pascal Janssen. We'll get I think around a 5 o'clock conversation with him tomorrow. And if there's something interesting, I'll probably try to put it out tomorrow evening. I don't know. It depends.
We'll definitely ask about him when he leads off Thiago Martins, Gustavo, and then gets a hold of Gray. I'll try and remind you again, but I'd love to know. He's not going to tell you exactly what he says, but I'd love to get the gist of what he was saying, whether it was tactical or just mental and what was being said. Because it was a long conversation.
Will do. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And we'll talk to you again soon when it's New York City at Charlotte. Have a great day, everybody.